did the state stop funding the colleges?
They never stopped funding it.
Well, they kept pulling back.
They cut 50% in 2011.
And the reason for that was?
Bill O'Brien.
Oh, bastard.
Well, they were looking for cost savings and the revenue wasn't as high. Okay, that's reasonable. What was unreasonable was, why would you take it from education? They're already the lowest in the nation. That's the part that kind of frustrated me. Like not below Alabama, the places below the bastions of, way below, like the non-bastion states of higher education. God, Idaho just donate. Idaho received like $2 billion, some outrageous number for a grant for higher ed. New Hampshire can't seem to pull its head out of its own stubborn ass.
Well, it never has. I mean, look at the way it funds education. It funds education, preying on people's weaknesses. Tobacco, alcohol, lottery tickets. And that's how we fund education here.
So you'd imagine it's kind of ironic that you take those who are weaker and you put it into something that makes people stronger. But it doesn't seem to produce the effect that they want, I think. They want to invest in education. You can't just invest with, from the sources you were just discussing. There's so many other revenue streams you could have taken from.
Yeah, or they could implement a tax.
Or they could implement basic statewide tax, or 0.5%, a drop in the bucket.
It's nothing. Nothing.
That would never fly here, though.
It's sad. It's sad. Well, it's live free or die,
So you were so you had just mentioned, the consumer.
Yeah, and everything changed. Everything suddenly went
so
from...
let's just starting on the student is you're the customer, right?
So students were suddenly, I saw the evolution where we were no longer calling them students, that now they were consumers. So it was very important to the administrators that as consumers, when they contact us, when they contact their instructors, I'm not even going to say the word professors.
Why?
Because.
With the quality?
No, just because, I mean, if...
Recognition?
Yeah, I'm not...
But you are?
I'm an instructor.
Okay.
I'm an instructor.
You're not, because you don't conduct research, or...
Oh,
I mean, you do.
I do all the time.
You don't
I go above and beyond. Yeah, so I'm an instructor.
Okay.
So suddenly the push came, or maybe there were complaints, my instructor, my professors don't get back to me, so they made it mandatory that we put it on our syllabus.
That you put...
The time, how long it would take us to return an email.
How do you feel about that?
I felt belittled. I felt a little humiliated. I felt like, why? I didn't understand the importance of it. And I was just like, I always get back to my students. I don't need anybody to tell me that I should get back to them. I need to put that in writing. But it was all to protect themselves. It's all about put it in writing, make sure the students know that we're listening to them and we care about them. I don't know.
But don't you anyway? You do.
I know, yeah, I do.
Or else why would you this job?
It was never, it was a moot point to me, but they were very adamant that that had to be included on the syllabus. And, then the word consumer started popping up. Consumer. Our students are consumers. And I'm like, consumers? Consumers go to the grocery store. They go, consumers go to, buy clothing at Anthropology. Well, not in New Hampshire, of course. The worst dressed state in the world, sorry.
So no, it's okay. So what do, it certainly didn't win a Tony.
Oh, man. Go ahead.
Or a fashion award. So,
it just started to slip in, the word consumer. Suddenly, we're selling something instead of giving something. I never thought of education in those terms, but it started to become a little bit more corporate and more business-like. Then, you know, we have to give them what they want. You know, we have to be the best. You know, there's competition. They can go somewhere else. You know, I don't know.
Sorry.
I never saw it that way.
And so, excuse me.
That's all right, Toonie. That's Toonie.
She's adorable.
She is, but you know, she'll try to like make out with you for hours. So yeah, so I saw things just sort of shift in the last, I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 years. From sort of this community college where we're all in it together and we're all working hard, to marketing started to become very important, you know, and selling credits.
So tell me more about that. What did they do? You said you get emails.
Yeah, we just get emails telling us how many credits we've sold so far, how many credits have been sold.
And so how well the college is doing?
Yeah, and look at how great we are doing. Look, you know, we're, 400 credits up. And I crazy me, I never thought about selling credits, or I never put it into that context. You know, I always thought, oh, students are going to enroll and this is a college and we'll be fine. You know, whether there's 400 more this year or 300 less. I never saw us like on the brink of disaster because building kept going on and presidents were hired and more administrators were hired and adjuncts kept making the same amount of money, I mean, I just, I didn't, crazy me, it's like I thought it was a non-profit. Aren't they non-profit? So that's for me, it's like an oxymoron to suddenly see credits being sold, and I'm thinking, wait a minute, I thought this was not for profit.
It is.
It's for profit, or is it?
No, it's not. They have state funding. So what they're trying, they said, what they'll say to themselves is that we're not a state agency.
But we are, right?
Well, that may be true that they're not a state agency or they're not a public domain, but that's not true because the money the majority of the money they receive, although they'll say it's like 1%, and they'll move the figures around so it seems less daunting based on public funds. But no, they receive a good quantity of money from the state, and they are a public entity, but they try to act as if they're a private entity, and so they've been like requesting less and less from the legislature. So that is actually part of the problem, believe it or not. And they'll fund their new buildings and whatnot by public grants. So it's like the rich uncle who never really has a lot of expenses, but can employ themselves in their own business and reap a lot of the rewards without all the responsibility because it's back on the public. So if you sell a public bond to the community and say, oh, it's good for the community, right, it's really good for the community, then you'll get some public investment and you won't have to take on a liability. But when you lower operating costs for yourselves by requesting less money from the legislature, you have a little more control over over what you do. So
right, so they're not mandated.
And they decentralized.
Yeah, I remember when that happened, and I wasn't. I sort of knew, but I didn't really understand what it meant. That they were. But so, therefore, Manchester and Nashua and Keene and Berlin or Laconia, they all are they interdependent? Are they independent?
They're interdependent. Sometimes Keene will help with additional funding for Berlin, or there'll be a little bit more money. So in that way, they act well. But the presidents, it acts like they have like their own little kingdom, their fiefdom. My Kenny loves to use that expression.
Well, it's perfect,
Yeah,
because the caste system, I mean, look at it.
So let's talk about the caste system in education and where you fit in as an adjunct. But before we get to that,
you want some tea? No, it's in the fridge.
How much money were you making before the 9 credit cap?
Oh, not much. You know, I mean, I've taught anywhere from 7 to 8 classes. So how, you do the math. I don't know. How much do I get paid? If I teach a 4 credit class, I get $2,400. But you generally only have like 1 4 credit class, and 3 credit classes are 2,000 something.
So, but roughly 20,000. How much? Roughly
Yeah,
20?
20, 22, something like that.
$22,000 a year.
I can't do the math right now. It's never been much.
Can you just say that? But can you approximate it for me in your answer?
Yeah, I suppose somewhere 22, 23, 20, 19. It goes down from there. I've had spring semesters where I've only had 1 class. Classes got canceled.
And so what?
So it's yeah. It all depends on enrollment, you know, and sometimes you don't even know whether you're teaching a class until even the day before it starts.
Does that negatively affect students?
I really don't know how it affects the students, because our names are never down next to the classes. You know, we're not acknowledged in that way. We're just acknowledged as staff. You know, it's not like Ann Clune or whomever. You know, I don't know. You know, I guess it would negatively impact a student, or they get put into a class that has a higher enrollment.
So since the 9 credit cap, how much money would you say that you're making approximately now?
I'd be around $20,000, somewhere around there.
How do you live on that?
I do other things. I'm not a prostitute. I rent rooms, you know, in my house. I share my house, which isn't fun at times, but it's what I have to do. How do I live? I live on train smoke. You know, me and Tom Waits. I've learned to live very meagerly. You know.
And so when the chancellor and the president of your college and every other president in the system gives themselves a $10,000,
$17,000,
$36,000
$36,000 raise.
how does that make you feel?
I feel awful. I feel discredited. I feel demoralized. I feel like the only reason they can do that is because they're paying us nothing. You know, how? You know, I mean, the wealthy are only wealthy because someone else has suffered. I mean, come on, that's an old adage. I didn't make that up. You know, we deserve, as adjuncts, we deserve to make as much as a full-time faculty. I'm teaching these same exact classes, same exact curriculum, the same exact syllabus. It meets for the same amount of time. We have the same textbook, the same expectations. Why do I make half? Is it because they don't think I do a good job, or I don't, you know, I'm sitting home smoking cigarettes, not grading papers? I mean, I don't. How do they qualify that? I don't get it. And is it just because they've been able to get away with it for such a long time? Is that why? Because no one stood up and said, you know, this isn't right. This is the only reason that community colleges across the country are making money. Because they're making the money off the back of the adjuncts. Because most people think, oh, you know, they're retired teachers. They really don't need the money. Oh, they're just doing it because they want to, you know, keep their you know, keep their hands in education. They like to teach. I think most people started out as adjunct because they thought ultimately there'd be a full-time job. You know, they sort of, you quote unquote prove yourself, work hard, do a great job, and you'd be hired. You'd be, even if it was hired as a part-time employee with some benefits. You know, I mean, to drive up and down the highway, oh yeah, you know, maybe it was a little bit easier when I was younger too, you know. I don't know. I don't know.
You're saying to drive up and down the highway, you mean?
Yeah, up and down the highway. Sometimes I would leave Manchester and have to be in Nashua a half an hour later. I would leave Manchester at 10:30. I couldn't even talk to students after class because I had to be in Nashua at 11. You know, be flying down the highway.
Sounds like you're putting your personal safety at risk.
Yeah. Well, you know, it's insanity. It's insanity. That's really what it is. You go from campus to campus. Up and, you know, Nashua, Manchester, Concord, wherever you can, to try to, you know, eke out a living.
Does that put pressure on you?
Yeah, it's insanity. Pressure, it's just, yeah.
Tell me more about that.
Well, you're always, you know, okay, after this I have to go here, and this is what I'm going to teach, and now I hope I have everything in the car. I hope I'm there. I got to get there, okay. All right, take care. I got to go. All right, bye-bye. You know, it's just this insanity. You know? Like, who does this? I guess, is this, or, you know, and I guess it's always sort of been the life of an adjunct, and it's been like, you know.
It didn't used to be this way.
When was it? When did everything change?
In the 80s, probably. I think it's late 70s, early 80s.
So that's when community colleges or college in general became more dependent on adjuncts?
College in general. You can look at there's a graph from...
So it shows
the exact opposite of today. Quite literally. 80-20, 20-80. And even those who aren't adjuncts are 70%, it's 70-30 for contingent. So you might have postdoctoral or research or a research associate professor who's going to be there for 2 more years unless they get a better grant. Kind of like what you were discussing before, how it's become a business. And so what do you think? You over the phone you had mentioned the word community and the word in community college and what it foretells. Do they live up to the name?
no, I don't think so. I mean, I think at one time they really did, and I believed it. You know, I believed I was working for the good of the community. You know, the greater good. I mean, the greater good has always been important to me. You know, I've always worked for nonprofits. I'm really not a business person. You know, education is so important to me, and I think that's how they pull us in. You know, because we're all saps. You know, oh, we believe in education. We believe in higher education. You know, education is knowledge. It's power, and you know, we're giving these kids a good start. You know, we're helping them. But you know what? I feel I can identify with my students more than I ever could. You know, most of them are working in fast food restaurants. They're pulling into the college, slamming on the brakes, running in, you know, books flying. They leave their class. They're either, you know, heading toward McDonald's or Burger King or home for a few minutes to check on the kids and then off again. It's the life of an adjunct.
Who's responsible for who's responsible for this?
Who's responsible? I suppose the big machine is responsible. I don't know how it happened. I don't know how it became a for-profit business. I don't know. I don't know when everybody got greedy. Is it greed? Is it not valuing people, not valuing students? You know, there's so many variables. I don't know when this happened.
Let's say it's all those things.
I think it is all those things. Yeah.
What do you think it's all what?
I think it's greed. I suppose. I think it's greed. I think it's not valuing your staff, taking advantage of them, knowing that, you know, maybe, I don't know. I don't know what the percentage of, how old is the average adjunct? I mean, is it across the continuum? You know, do they start at 28 and go up to 75?
33 to 50 something.
I think, you know, from my perspective, many of the adjuncts I see are a little bit older, maybe a little bit more vulnerable. The economy's hit really hard, and a lot of people have gotten taken advantage of. Oh well, there's no other jobs. I can't go anywhere. I own a house here. I have a family. You know, on and on and on. It's not how I saw things play out. I thought, oh, we're all in this together. We're working for the greater good. This is the community. It's a community college. It's implicit, right? It's sort of implied that it's going to be a kind, benevolent place, right? And just a little acknowledgement, a little pat on the back. Hey, you guys yeah, you got some great evaluations. You did a really great job last semester. Nothing. There's nothing. Absolutely nothing. Whether you do really well or whether you have a crappy semester, nothing seems to matter. Just how many credits we've sold. Shouldn't there be some kind of system in place if someone's been there for X number of years, that that they'll be the people who will have their first pick of classes. They won't have their hours cut. Shouldn't there be some kind of system in place? How much more loyalty do I have to show? I don't understand it. Is this how it is in big business? Don't they take care of their employees on some level, or no? Health benefits, is that such a horrible thing that the first thing that the chancellor does when ACA comes into being, or 214, cut their hours? Is that really how it works? It does. So I have to stop. I have to stop saying no. They care. No, I'm good. I am. I'm a good teacher. I'm a good instructor. I'm a good professor. The only way you get any acknowledgement is from your students. That's where it comes from. So how long? But does that pay the bills or buy you a new car? Or
Does that pay the bills?
No.
Does that buy you a new car?
No, not that. I don't want a new car. I'm very.
But the fact that you can't.
I'd like to earn a living wage. I would like to make as much money as a full-time faculty member who's teaching the same class. That's all. I don't think that that's ridiculous.
Let's say it was 2/3, even 2/3, for 80% of what they make.
Well, yeah, 80%. Why?
I'm just saying. If that's what it came to, is that acceptable?
Yeah, it's acceptable. But so why? So who decided? Who decided that who came up with these numbers? Pay an adjunct faculty member to teach a class in public speaking. Who came up with these numbers? $2,000 for a full semester. Do you know? Who